Ladies and gentlemen, today is July 29th, Tuesday, 2014, and this is the KNKL SHOW, episode 188, where we learn to be better artists. I'm your host, Keenan Lafferty, and today we are going to be doing a tutorial on something very important. Now, I know all of you have been going to school and learning the fundamentals, learning color theory and musculature and composition, but all of that does not count for jack unless you know how to draw something very important. And that something is lovely lady parts, boobs. And we are going to be talking about drawing boobs as well as some interesting areas that I tend to have problems with. The torso, like the ribs and the obliques and how it all like connects down to the hips, because a lot of people just like to learn how to draw this stuff. And I think that I've come up with some good tips to take us there. But before we get into that, we have to take a stroll down the lovely lane because you guys... Okay, first of all, I don't know why you guys are watching my show because this is, way better than stuff I could do. You guys should be teaching me, if you're painting stuff like that. But at any rate, and this stuff, this is all really, really well done art. So thank you guys for, once again, submitting stuff to the Facebook. If you have not joined us, please click the link down below on YouTube, and you can join us, submit your art, converse amongst yourselves, and I get to see your art, check it out. And I do look at everything, and I like it personally, myself. So, yes, thank you very much for doing that. But with all that out of the way, let's get into the boobies. And what I'd like to start with, well, first of all, something that I've been doing on my show lately is I actually have been showing my references because I think it's very important. And lately, I just stopped giving a crap about copyright infringement. I don't make a dime off of this show because I don't run commercials for a reason. I don't make anything off of it, so basically it doesn't matter. So these are some of the best references I've ever been able to find. So you can feel free to print screen them, use them for your own artistic uses. And let's go ahead and get into it, okay? So, the first thing that we're going to be talking about is, let us first talk about, let's talk about the angles, right? The angles of the boobs, okay? And one of the most important things that I will teach you today. So what we're going to work with right now is we're going to sketch in just like a girl's body, right? I want you guys to pay attention to a couple things. So as I've done it before, as I've said before, one of the things that I like to do to start with a female body is, of course, hey, look at that hourglass figure. Very nice. And I basically like to construct it in terms of mannequin. I like to think of it like a mannequin at the mall, right? Mannequin at the mall wearing some swimsuit thing, okay? So you got this going on, right? The leg kind of comes off of there, and you got that coming down. All right, and then this will come up towards the head. Let's go ahead and move this down a little bit. Dang it, I didn't want that on that layer. This is for notes. That's the notes color. So let's go ahead and draw in the head right there. Okay, and then you're going to have your shoulders going off there. Okay, so here's what I want to talk about right now. We're going to be talking about specifically how to shade the boobs, okay? Because this is a problem that I see a lot. This is a problem that I see way too much, and I roll my eyes every time I see it, okay? And that problem is, say this girl is wearing some sort of tube top thing, right? So it's like that. Now, a common problem that I see people do. Two things. And if you do this, I will find you, okay? If you do this, I will find you, okay? They're like, okay, it's time to draw the boobs in there, right? And then they draw this line, okay? And they draw this line, okay? And that's all well and good, right? That's all well and good. But then the problem that I have is that when they're all done, right? She's wearing this really pretty dress, right? She's wearing a pretty dress. Let's make it look like the one from Emma, I guess. So she's wearing this pretty dress, and then they leave these lines. They leave these lines, and you're not supposed to do that. Do not ever do that. And the reason being because obviously dresses do not get vacuum sealed to the girl's chest, and you would not be able to see it like that, okay? You must omit these lines. You must get rid of them once you start painting in the fabric, laying over top of them anyway, okay? So if she's naked, then, it's a different story. Gravity's going to take hold of them and all that stuff, and that's a whole other conversation. that I might not be qualified for at the moment. But what I can say is how they will react inside of the fabric, okay? So you're going to have something like this, okay? Now, there's two things that I want to talk about here. But first, we'll stick with this, and then we'll move on to the next one, okay? So let's start with this. I actually really like the way this looks. I like the way this figure looks right now. It's nice. It just whipped it out, man. It just whipped it out. Okay, so here's one of the things that I want to do, okay, for the boobs. So another common pitfall that I see is people do this thing where they draw these lines like this. Call it like the Y, the cleavage Y. And the reason that I don't like this is because it's too, I don't know, it's not subtle, right? It looks too, I don't know, it's too high contrast. So I'm going to suggest to you a different type of thing, especially if you're shading. What I like to do is I like to pretend, you know when you did those exercises at school where you would shade the sphere and, you know, the middle part of the sphere, depending on where the light's coming from, right? So say the light's coming from right here, right? Shining down on the sphere. You would have the light hitting here, right? And then it would go to darkness as it rounded. As it went around, it went to darkness. That is the same principle we are going to be using for the boobs, okay? So watch. So our light is coming from a similar source. It's pretty much in the front. So we're going to have our light spot right here. And then as it rounds towards the inner part of the chest, it is going to shade itself, basically like that. And what this is going to produce is a very subtle, yet very sexy effect. Okay? So this is how I like to teach people to draw boobs, right? I think it's a lot better of a way to do it. And it's more subtle. It's way more subtle than the freaking Y shape. Don't do that. Don't do that, okay? And it'll look a lot better, obviously, once you like shade the rest of the body. It'll start to take its proper form. So another thing that I want to talk about, and that it is actually a mistake that I'm doing right here, is depending on, I don't know, like the tightness of the dress, right? There's going to be like some deformation happening within the boobs. So let's go ahead and show a little example of that. So I'm actually going to just duplicate this layer. I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's say we turned this dress to more of like a corset type thing, okay? So we're doing this, and I'm sure you guys have seen this all the time in like movies and stuff, Pirates of the Caribbean, anywhere where they're wearing like some sort of corset. Actually, wait, no, it would look more like this. There we go. There we go. Now, basically what happens is when you apply more pressure to this area, right, of the chest, what you're going to have is basically like the skin is going to kind of like bubble out of it, right? And this is going to show the suppleness of the flesh. And this is something that's really important that you guys do, okay? If you want to create that feeling of like real flesh, okay? So you'll have the corset come up like this, right? And then what's going to happen is, before it was like this, right? But now it's being squeezed in a bit. But still, it is going to want to kind of come out a ways. So you're going to get a shape kind of like that. Try not to exaggerate it like too much. Don't like do that. Actually, I guess you could. You could do that. Yeah, you could do that. Huh. But try not to make it look like super crazy. But this will like demonstrate the suppleness of the flesh. And I think it looks really nice when artists actually do that and make it look as though, you know, there's actual flesh going on there. And again, shade, shade. Super simple shading. And I like to work with the chalk brush. Again, a lot of people ask me for this brush. You can download it by clicking the link down below. It's through DeviantArt, and you can just download it, check it out. I really love this brush a lot, as opposed to just the regular hard round brush that comes with Photoshop. Okay, so I really like that. Again, depending on how tight or whatever, if your girl's wearing a corset or like just a regular dress or whatever, you want to always be considering the suppleness of flesh. All right, so that makes me quite happy for right now. We're going to move on to ribs. We're going to move on to the rib area. And a couple things that are very, very important to consider when you are drawing a woman's like torso area. And these are places that I tend to have a lot of problems with. So, might be a little bit of a joint study session, whatever. Let's get into it. So, I'm actually just going to take this same old thing. I'm going to take this old layer. We're going to duplicate it, get rid of this, and let's focus on the obliques, okay? So, sorry lady, we're taking off the dress again. Taking off your dress. Okay. So, I will tell you, first off, a couple of the things that I really like to consider when I am just laying in the beginnings of my torso areas on girls. Okay? Now, one of them being the rib cage. Okay? One of the most important things that you can do on a girl's torso is to remember this shape, right? These shapes going up here, and then this little crevice that's like happening between, the boobs, between the chest. And notice how it actually goes all the way up, like right from the belly, it goes right up, straight up to the collarbone. That is really, really handy, and I always like to remember that. And what's really cool is that you can see it very clearly right here. Very, very clearly once the body starts turning, okay? So I like to accentuate it right here. I really like to accentuate this shape. So let me show you how I would do that over here. Okay, so I would say, okay, we've got the boobs right there, and then, just like I said, right there is going to be your rib cage. And what I like to do is I like to really make it simple, and I like to bring it out as though we are going down, right? But I think what's important is you don't want to draw this line all the time. If you draw that line, again, it's just like the Y technique. If you're drawing the boobs like that, the Y technique is way too obvious. It's way too obvious. You need to be subtle. You need to be very, very subtle. So instead, I like to imply the line, again, with some very simple, soft shading. Soft shading. And instead, like if there is going to be anything hard, I do it kind of like that. It's like almost like a backwards L. Okay? And that is simulating, once again, this right here. So it goes out, and then it goes that way to create the rib cage. Okay? So moving on, we need to also consider the other side of the rib cage. So it's going to be coming out like this, and then it's going to go in. Okay? And then that would connect up here. But again, don't draw that line. Don't draw that line. Just keep it simple. There we go. There we go. Okay. So I really like to think about it in terms of almost like two halves. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but it's like it's really easy to think about the torso in terms of like two halves because of this line. Because of this line right here. And then it goes right down to the belly button. You build off of that to make your rib cage. And then now we start getting into the nebulous zone called the obliques and the hips. This is where I have a lot of trouble. But luckily, I have this awesome drawing that comes from Alvin Lee on one of his courses on Nomen. Hope he doesn't mind. I'm stealing this little thing from him. But if he does, he can just contact me and tell me to take it down, which would be unfortunate for all of us. And then we would all be very angry with him, but I don't think he will. Much less, I don't even think he watches my show. So, we're going to use that to our advantage. So yeah, we're going to start moving into the obliques and the hips. Okay? So, something that I really like to do is I like to consider this shape that kind of goes up like this. Also, I think that this reference is really, really nice because it not only shows you the form of the body, but it also shows you the underlying muscles and why it actually looks like the way that it does. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is I'm going to start with like the crotch region, and we're going to go up towards the obliques. So you'll notice if we go from the crotch like this, we go up and we go like that, you'll notice that interesting shape that happens right there. This is from basically the muscles and the edge of the pelvis, I believe. So it's going to go like that, But this shape is what you want to remember. And that shape is happening right there. You see how Alvin basically draws that in? That's exactly what's happening right there. So, from the crotch, you're going to bring it up, right? And then like that. Okay? Boom, boom, boom. Very, very cool way to remember how to draw that. And now we're going to be recalling, again, this is the edge of our rib cage. Okay, and now we're going to be bringing in the obliques. And what's really cool about the woman's torso specifically is that it creates, you don't have to accentuate the abs as much as in the guys. You can, but again, I would stress that you make them very, very subtle. But I personally really like this woman's body a lot because it creates like this, sort of like this violin shape right around the belly. And that's something I always like to remember. And then you'll notice it fits right in to that, the hip shape that's happening right there, right into the obliques, and right into the rib cage. So let's go ahead and translate that over. So we're going to bring down the belly like that. It goes right up. Fits right in with those things there. And this is all just kind of for measuring, right? You're obviously not going to be keeping those lines in. But let's go ahead and put in the belly button. And then what comes in handy, once again, if we think about our ball technique, right, for shading, we are going to shade the edge of this very lightly. We can get rid of these lines here. And let's see here. We're going to have a little bit of shading here and here. Okay. We're erasing now. Erasing lines that we do not need. Don't need these lines. Let's see. There's a little bit of difference happening right there. So I'll do it something like that. And then something that's really, really important with the legs on girls is you want to remember that the legs do not bend and rotate from this point. Okay? Legs do not bend and rotate from this point. And this is something that's really, really important. They do not bend, like the hip bones are not connected up there. They're actually way the heck down here, right? Your legs are going to bend from there. And something that I think is really, really cool and actually really, really sexy to draw and like pull off is basically like the hip line. See how the hip line like continues way up here? And yet the bend of the leg is actually going to start right there. See that little subtle like crease in the skin right there? It's actually where your leg is going to begin to bend, and that's seen here on Alvin's drawing. So let's say if I were to, I'm going to kick this girl's leg out just a little bit more. Like if her leg was like this. Okay? The bend would actually be happening right there. The bend of the leg would be happening right there. We want to simplify that. Actually, I'd probably just do it like this. Probably just omit that line as much as possible. And then I really just like to do this. I really like to do these types of things. You draw the leg like that. And then let's say like if this was like a swimsuit type thing, it would create that effect. You see how that leg is bending and then the swimsuit kind of comes over it and goes further up the hip? That's something you want to consider. Consider that. Super easy, super fun. I like that stuff. I feel like actually that leg might be a little bit weird. It might be a little weird. Maybe it's not the best. It's not the best. I don't know. You're going to have to experiment with yourself. Again, this is a joint study session. So, it's my fallback. Okay, but anyway, at any rate. I think actually it's more important to think about this line, actually. I just really like to think about those lines on the crotch, like going into the legs. It's just, I don't know, I really like it a lot. Always makes it look very nice, very nice. Can't describe why, though. Can't really describe why. I think it's more about just showing the suppleness of the flesh and just the folds of the skin. I always think it looks really nice. So, one last thing that I want to talk about before we end today's tutorial is basically like something that I didn't notice until I pulled this up, which I thought was done really, really well. Really, really well. And that is actually, if you zoom in here, remember how we talked about this line going up? I want you to pay attention to these little lines right here. Look at that. Branching off of the collarbone. And that is actually the woman's pecs, right? These lines is what is being portrayed right there. And that is something that is also a very, very subtle thing that you can do with your art. But I think it's the little things that add so much to the believability of your characters and to your figures. So I'm going to just go ahead and draw that in really quick. And I'm going to see if I can simulate that. First of all, this boob is like way too high. We're going to fix that. We're going to fix that right off. Okay. So, okay, once again, consider this. It's going back this way. But now we want to draw in those chest muscles, right? So if this line were to continue up, we go like that, right into our collarbone. This is the collarbone. And again, watch this. Watch the subtlety. I'm just going to do that. Okay. Erase it. Erase. Erase, erase. And I'm probably going to do it like that. And like that. And just keep it simple. Keep it fairly simple. Okay. Oi. So like that, okay? So little things like that are going to start to make your drawings, I don't know, maybe not look better per se, but oh, okay, fine, I'll say better. It's all in the subtleties, guys, especially with girls' bodies. And it takes time, it really does. I hope that me kind of stumbling around for the last 20 minutes trying to draw this has helped you out. But when in doubt, I'm telling you guys, press lightly. Press lightly with your stylus. Think about the curves that are happening, right? Just to sum it up, let's think about the curves. Remember the balls technique. The balls, okay? So it curves and darkens as it turns. Basically what's happening here, 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 here. Everywhere that is turning away from the light, we start to darken it. All right? And if you guys can remember that when you're drawing your females, they will look fantastic. And yeah, good times, good times. And I do realize that these boobs are kind of defying gravity a little bit. If she was actually naked, her boobs would not look like that. Once again, why I really love these drawings down here. Because that's probably the last thing I'll talk about. Okay, so this girl is completely naked. Boobs do not stick off the torso like balloons, okay? They're not like, this is the torso, right? Here's the girl's head, and here's the boobs, right? They don't do this, okay? Don't do that. You want to consider the gravity that is pulling them down, and usually what happens is they round on the bottom, and then much like in this drawing here, which they have portrayed so well, they round on the bottom, and then they're more straight on the top. Okay, this is because Isaac Newton's discovery of gravity. Prior to this discovery, they actually did not do this. Boobs were they were perfectly up. They were anti-gravity until Newton discovered it, and all the boobs sagged to the ground, right? So, we want to make sure we're honoring Isaac Newton and his discoveries by properly drawing the chest. Okay, so make sure you do that. Don't make it super round on the top. Unless they are obviously wearing some sort of support, some sort of air support. And you will live long and prosper in the land. All right, we've done it. We've done it. I've taught you everything that I know about boobs, about torsos, and I've even learned a couple things myself. So I hope that helped you guys out. I really do. I really hope it did. So take these tips, draw your women's even better than you have before, hopefully. Draw those sexy legs. Draw like like I said, get those lines in there, study these, get these references if you haven't taken them already. Print screen this, print screen that, all right? And go on to draw beautiful ladies. And trust me, like, it is something that really comes in handy working in the professional field. You wouldn't think that it would, but like, if you have the skill to draw the female figure, it is actually an invaluable asset, especially in the entertainment industry, working for Riot Games, working for video game companies. It's always going to come in handy. So I hope this helps you guys out. Please thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. My name is Keenan Lafferty. I'll see you guys next time. Till then, take care.